thank you so much for clicking on this week's episode. My guest today is the founder of an organization called Geerz. Geerz is an established organization within the Ramat Beit Shemesh community in Israel, and as you'll hear in this episode, all throughout the country, where they take mountain biking and therapy and merge those two worlds together in a very special and unique way. Nachum Wasosky grew up in America without a Jewish father, found his way to Israel to study, and the rest, you're going to have to sit tight to hear what happens from there. Thank you so much and enjoy this episode. We are ready to rock and roll. I am so excited. We're rolling officially. So first of all, Nachum Wasosky, thank you so much for joining me. This episode, I feel like is a very personal one for me because for those that are listening to this, my dad and you go way back. So the fact that I get to sit here as his son interviewing you today about the amazing things that you've done in your life, I'm just very excited. So thank you for taking the time and let's do it.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome.
I'm excited.
So right now we're sitting in Ramat Beit Shemesh in Israel. And when you pulled up outside here, you had a truck that on the side of the truck, if I saw correctly, it had a massive logo that said Geerz.
Yes.
That's your car?
That's the car.
Exactly. So I want to get to there. But before we get there, we have to go way back. Okay, so take me back to the beginning of your childhood, your early years growing up, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So I was born in a small town in Ohio, and one of three, the youngest of three boys, and a completely secular way of living. My father not Jewish, mother Jewish, and we lived on a farm basically. Cows, pigs, goats, horses, dogs, 20 acres of land and a pasture in the backyard. My parents got divorced when I was about 5 years old, and my mother had a big decision to make. And she said, number one is my kids need some Judaism in their lives. And number two is I got to go back home to where she grew up. Also, my father grew up both in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And picked up and moved back to where her family was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and enrolled us into a modern Orthodox Jewish day school. The reason why she did that was twofold. Number one is very simply, practically, she needed to work full-time as a single mom to support us, and she had to be at work from 9 to 5. And as you know, public school, they don't go 9 to 5. They get out at 1, 2 o'clock. So just in a little bit of research, she wanted us to have a dual curriculum so that we're in school longer, learn a little bit of Judaism. So she put us into Hillel Academy, Modern Orthodox Jewish Day School in Pittsburgh. And number two is, back to the Jewish thing, she wanted us to have a Jewish education so that we would marry Jewish.
So I just have to ask on that. So how does it go from, your mother intermarried, she married a non-Jew, then they get divorced, and I assume you grew up not knowing so much, and then all of a sudden you come into Hillel. Was it a massive culture shock for you? Like, what was that balance like?
Look, I was midway through first grade, so I was, my brain, any kid at that age, your brain is open. Right. So yes, things were different, and I just kind of, took it as it came. We had some people in the class invite us for Sukkot, so we saw what a sukkah was. Passover comes, and we see what matzah is. So yes, very different, because up until then it was primarily, Easter and Christmas. So like, we, new holidays, more holidays. But yeah.
And also at that time, as you're beginning to celebrate Jewish holidays, and you're opening up to kind of what the real aspects of Judaism are, which are the Chagim and the holidays. Your father, what was your relationship like with him? And were you also like, did you have one foot kind of in the Jewish world and then one foot kind of in his world?
Yes. So pretty much through high school, I was back and forth, literally one foot in both worlds. So all of, the Jewish holidays, we would have breaks. So when it came time for Hanukkah, I would go to my father's house because it's around Christmas time. And I spent 2 weeks with him. And I would bring, my menorah to my father's house. And, at nighttime, I'd be lighting my candles. And in the morning, it was waking up by the Christmas tree, opening presents. Passover time, when it was Pesach. So, we would go to my father's again, spring break, right? So we go to my father's house with our matzah. And we ate matzah for the week at my dad's house. And then, for example, the fun story that I like to tell, obviously, is that when Pesach was over, we would break Pesach by going to Pizza Hut, eating pepperoni and sausage pizza. So it was nice that we, had our matzah during the week and matzah ball soup. We got to break it on pepperoni pizza. So it literally was back and forth my entire life. As I got older, as you can imagine, I started paying attention a little bit more to detail in the Jewish world. I was, still a little bit more leaning towards the Jewish world and the Jewish way of life and the halachic way of life. I was more cognizant of, should I really eat bread or not on Passover? And when I was at my father's house, I would stop eating ham for Christmas time, but I was still there for the presents and still there for being there and celebrating the holiday. But really, I was walking in two worlds, at least until I was 18 years old.
Wow. So once you get to 18 years old and you're kind of have one foot in the Jewish world, one foot in the not, and you get to this point where, if, for those that don't know, the modern Orthodox framework in basically any modern Orthodox institution in the world is that you finish high school, and typically before you go to college, you go to study in Israel. So what happens for you after high school, and kind of take me through that?
Yeah. So I've always stuck around for some reason, Jewish institutions, Jewish organizations, no matter how far I was away from Judaism. Primarily, I like to call it the emotional Judaism that I got throughout my childhood. One was in Bnei Akiva. I went to Camp Stone my whole life. It was just feel-good Judaism. Everything about that summer. My closest friends till this day from all over the country in America are from Camp Stone. Same thing with NCSY. I was a leader in NCSY. I was on the board of directors and junior NCSY and senior NCSY. Again, just feel good, have a great time being Jewish. And therefore, my road ahead was always in Jewish institutions, organizations, regardless of how, quote unquote, religious I was or Torah observant I was. So when it was time to go to my gap year, of course, I wasn't going to Columbia or to University of Pittsburgh or to Queens College, where a lot of my friends did go to those schools. I was going first to gap year, and the one we chose was Yeshivat Har El. That was Benny Friedman. A lot of people know him because he has a successful yeshiva today, Oraita. Rav Benny's first stab at a yeshiva was Har El. He was actually in Pittsburgh at the time. He married a Pittsburgh girl, and he was our Rebbe in high school. And he said, guys, next year, where are you going? Nobody had a clue. And he said, I'm opening up a yeshiva. You guys got to come. So the guys from our class that did go to Israel went to Har El. It was a one and done for him. And then he moved on to building Oraita. But we were in Yeshivat Har El for that year. And again, I wasn't particularly, a yeshiva guy. I still have my foot in both worlds, but I was walking the walk and I was going to where my friends were going, and I stuck around. And then right after that, you either stay a second year in Israel, or typically from that point, you go to Yeshiva University. And I enrolled in Yeshiva University.
So I want you to take me through that step. And before you get there, when you came to Israel for the year to study, was it ever a thought in your mind that you would want to live here?
So I didn't think about it so much. It was ingrained in me, little did I know, from my years of Bnei Akiva. Israel was always, an option. It was more subconscious. But at that point in my life, I wasn't thinking that Israel was an option. As a matter of fact, I was, while I was studying in SciSim School of Business, I was trying to make some inroads into the business world in a little quiet way. I wasn't so much into the trying to get ahead like everybody else was. As a matter of fact, I shun away from that, kind of competition and it wasn't for me, right? A little bit more laid back and in the back of the back of the classroom and doing things quietly. I had a very close friend who said, "Hey, my father is in real estate. He does brownstones, and come, you're going to have a meeting with him. He just wrote a book. Here's his book." And right after the Chagim in my junior year, I was going to meet with him. and I was going to hopefully start my career in real estate in New York City. From that point, I was meeting with a rabbi. You're asking about Israel, right? So I was meeting with a rabbi in YU, which is a little bit strange because, again, I was not particularly religious and meeting with Rabbanim at that time. I was still, hanging out, having a good time. I was playing basketball in the gym at YU. I was going out at night, and I was doing enough to pass my dual curriculum studies. And Israel, again, was not really in my mind. One of my friends from Camp Stone, again, from Teaneck, New Jersey, said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Listen, I'm hanging out, having a good time. And, this is a guy who's taking all of his classes seriously. He's studying in the Beit Midrash every day." And he said, "Come, I see you're having a rough time. I got a rabbi, come meet him, Rabbi Khan." And I said, "Listen, it's not for me. I'm not meeting rabbis now, and I'm taking some time, and I have my path, and I'm good." And he really begged me to come and to meet his rabbi, and he said it would be good for me, and I went with him, and that started a beautiful relationship with Rabbi Khan, who has a shul in Brooklyn, and he was a Maggid Shir in YU. And basically, I had met with him for several months, once or twice a week, and it was coming up on the Chagim time, and he said, "What are you doing, over the Chagim?" I said, "Well, I got a bunch of friends. They have places up in upstate New York. I'm going to work. I'm going to make some money, hanging out with friends." And he says, "No, you're going to Eretz Yisrael." And I was like, what are you talking about? It was like literally like we're having Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, then I'm going. And he said, "Listen," he said, "you need to go to Eretz Yisrael." He said, "You just need to go there and marinate in the holiness of the land for 10 days, and you'll come back and you'll be renewed and rejuvenated. You'll be a different human." I was struggling. What do I want to do with my life? Do I really want to go into real estate? What do I want to do with religion? I've been around religion my whole life, both Christian and Jewish. And I was asking questions. And he says, "Just go and marinate, in the Holy Land for 10 days. I thought it was a little bit crazy. And he said, "Look," he said, "do you have any family there?" I said, "No." "Friends?" I said, "Yeah, I have friends there who've been there since our gap year still." He said, "Great. I'll pay for your round trip ticket. And you just go there, figure out where you're going to stay with your friends, and you'll come back." So, I chewed on it for a week or so, whatever it was, and I came back and I took him up on this offer. I don't know why, because I was going to make a lot of money and hang out with my friends. And that was my trajectory, my path in my life, for the last 5-6 years. And I took him up on his offer. And I went to Israel for 10 days.
Okay, so we have to unpack what happens from here because obviously I knowing you, I know a little bit part of that story, but making that decision when your social construct of all your friends are going to upstate New York, and you are essentially being that that guy that's Poresh Min Hatzibur. You're leaving the pack to kind of go. So once you get off the plane, take me through what goes down from there.
Okay, so I think it was Tower Air, which you probably don't even know what that means. So I show up to Israel on Tower Air, and this same guy from Teaneck who told me that I have to meet Rabbi Khan, he says to me, "I don't care what you do in Israel, you got to meet one person. You're going to be in the old city. Your friends are in Asia Torah for a couple years now studying that you knew from your gap year. You're going to be staying in the old city. There's one guy you need to meet in the old city. His name is Mati Berger. And whatever you do on this trip, you show up within the first couple of days, you just got to meet Mati Berger first." And thought it was a little bit crazy. Who's Mati Berger? I'm not going to meet rabbis, right? I'm going to marinate in Holy Land. And how am I going to find this guy? And it just seemed weird to me. But okay, I show up there, see my friends, get introduced to the Rova, Yehudi. And I was with my friend and I said, "Listen, I got to meet this guy." I pulled out from my pocket, I got to meet this guy of Mati Berger. Can you introduce me to him, please? I told my friend I'd meet him. That's all I have to do on this trip. And he says, as a matter of fact, he's standing right over there with a bunch of kids around him and talking, and kids, young adults. So I go over and introduce myself, and I said, "So-and-so says to me, my name is Nachum Wasosky, and I just came from YU, and my friend said I have to come here to Israel and meet you." and he pinches my cheek, gives me a big hug, gives me a kiss on the cheek, and he says, "What's up?" And I said, "I don't know. I was supposed to come meet you." And, there's no WhatsApp and there's no we didn't make a meeting. And we started talking for maybe half hour, 45 minutes. And we were just talking about life, a little bit of philosophy, what we're doing, where we're going. And he said, I don't know, it must have been 11, 12 o'clock. He said, "What are you doing at 6 o'clock today?" I said, "I got nothing going on for 10 days. He said, "Come to my house at 6 o'clock. And I went to his house in the Rova there. And we spoke at least 3 hours straight, at his dining room table. And we just talked about, life. What are we doing here? Where are we going? Why are we here?" And he actually suggested to me, that maybe I look into, hanging out with my friends in Aish Torah for a little bit of time. From that point, I was with all my old friends that I grew up with, some from NCSY, some from Pittsburgh, some from B'nai Akiva, Camp Stone. And 4 things happened during that trip. 4 of my friends said to me 4 different, they gave me 4 different gems of information to chew on that really changed, my life from that, those 10 days till where we are today in that truck you're talking about. One was that one of my friends said to me, "Listen, we grew up in modern Orthodox day school. Nothing against modern Orthodox day school, any Jewish school, right? We don't know if there's a God. We don't know if the Torah we got at Sinai. We don't know what we're supposed to be doing here and why we're here. You got to come learn Aish Torah. Come for a month, and you'll know why. And you'll know if." So the if and why is very important because you can't do anything without that. Friend number 2 says to me, "You're at YU. It's great, but after Aish Torah." He said, "You have to learn how to live before you learn how to make a living. Because once you already learn how to make a living, you're gone. And however you've been living until now, whatever trajectory you're gonna be on, and whoever your 5 closest friends are around you, that's who you're gonna, that's what your life is gonna be. First, you need to figure out who you want to be and how you want to live before you're gonna go make a living." Number 3 friend from Pittsburgh, very, very close friend, she said to me, "You've always been dealing with religion your whole life. You've never had answers. Jesus, God of the Jews, you've always been around this stuff. You've always been questioning. You're a seeker. You owe it to yourself to figure it out. And your friends are right? You owe it to yourself." And then the last friend, another buddy from Cleveland, Ohio, he said to me, "Listen, you spent a gap year on Ben Yehuda. You spent, your time in Yeshiva University, right? At the West End, right?" He said, "If you're going to come here and you're going to sit and study and learn and seek and figure it out, then stay. But if you're going to pull another gap year, then get out of here." Wow. So those are the 4 things that really gave me some serious soul food to chew on. And after a few days of talking to them and thinking, I called Rabbi Khan, who was my really only connection to YU, administration at the time. And there was no WhatsApp then. That call must have cost me, I don't know, $50, right? Wow. But he said, I said, "Rabbi, I think I want to stay." I got into Aish Torah. They accepted me, which was rare because they at that time would never accept a modern Orthodox kid to yeshiva. They wanted, college kids that had nothing before, as with regards to religion or Judaism. So I got accepted to Aish Torah, and Rabbi Khan said, "Don't worry, I'll defer for as long as you want, and start learning." And so I stayed in Aish Torah.
So it's crazy because you're people pick up on this. You pointed out at the beginning, right when you got on that plane to come to Israel, you were in your junior year of college.
Yeah.
So it's, for most people, they would probably say, "Let me go back, I'll finish, and I'll come back to Israel."
Right.
But the fact that you literally just jumped in the water and then you're like, "Let me do this," that's pretty impressive. So now that you make that decision, take me what happens through there. And what I'm really curious about is your family. No WhatsApp, they can't see you. They can't really talk to you. Your dad's not Jewish. Your mom's not so religious. So when you call them up, you're like, "Hey, Mom, Dad, I think I'm going to spend time in Israel." Actually, studying in yeshiva. What was that process like for you?
Okay, so made the decision to stay and let the family know that I'm staying. And they literally had no idea what was going on. They were terrified. They thought I was running from the police. They didn't know what was going on and why this was happening and what's wrong with me. Am I in some kind of a cult? Am I on some kind of a drug? What is going on? And they knew about my life. They knew where I was going. They knew I was inside some school of business. They knew in a year's time I was going to have a good job in New York. And now I just defer it. And they got together and sent my Gentile father as the family representative to come and see what's going on with me. Wow. Happened to be probably the best 10 days that I'd ever spent with him until now. Obviously, because I'm a little bit older now, and the trip was we were touring around, we were talking about religion and philosophy and life and values, and it was just a really beautiful time. But long story short is that he went home and told the family, like, hey, the kid's okay. He's doing great. He's learning in this thing called a yeshiva. And I brought my father into Aish Torah. He met the rabbis. He met my friends. Like, he saw where I was, what I was doing, beautiful brand new dormitory that they had just built. And, he brought back good news to the family. Everybody, again, was still a little bit confused. And at the same time, they were happy that I was healthy and my head screwed on straight. And actually, my mother and childhood friends of the family went to New York City with a station wagon, cleaned out my apartment. And, there was a lot that I left behind, right? I was just looking forward, but I left a lot behind for people to clean up for me. And, officially, I have to thank everybody that took care of that scene, because it wasn't easy for them. They're picking up my pieces, and I'm just on this, spiritual journey ahead of me.
That is really wild how you said that your family sent the one non-Jewish person as the representative out of your entire family to come see. But I guess, Hashem has his ways of kind of steering you in the direction. So once you now decide to stay, and essentially you get the green light, that's the terminology I'm thinking of. When you get the green light from your family, go for it, go all in. Take me through kind of what happens from there.
Okay, so I get the green light from my family. No one's worried about me anymore. And I walk into Aish Torah, my first official day, and I say, listen, they have all these, classes ready for me. You're going to learn some Talmud, some Gemara, and you're going to learn Chumash, and you're, 5 books of Moses. And I said, listen, I can't open a book. I'm not opening a book. No Talmud, no 5 books of Moses, no halacha, no laws. I said, I just want to know if there's a God, how I know there's a God. Did the God give the Torah at Sinai? And what am I supposed to do here? If it takes me a year, it'll take me a year to figure it out or to not, whatever I need, but I'm not opening up a book. Again, right? I need to know why I should be opening up. My whole life was why now at this point, right? So again, why am I supposed to be living here before making a living, right? So the switch flipped in my brain to, I first need to figure out why. And that's what I did. I spent, a month in the Aish Discovery program and all the essentials classes that they had there. And then not only that, but, Rabbi Weinberg was big on, if you know an aleph, teach an aleph, right? And also you start thinking, if you teach something, right, it sinks into your brain, or you start questioning, is this really true what I'm saying or not? So it wasn't just learning and accepting, it was trying to give also. And, the more I was giving over the information, the more I was listening to myself, my heart, my mind, my soul, and it was real, right? What I was finding out was real. So from that point on, I was studying a little bit, I was teaching a little bit, and 1 year led to 2, and 2 years led to 3. And it happened to be that the 3 years in, I reconnected to my high school and college, sweetheart, also from Pittsburgh, who I met in 1st grade.
Wow.
We, were both ready to start dating seriously, and we got married in Cleveland, Ohio. She was in grad school for physics, and I said, hey, I'm in Smicha, about to go into Smicha in Aish Torah. And so after a month in Cleveland, we packed up and we moved together to Ramat Eshkol. At that time in Jerusalem, there were maybe a dozen religious Americans in that neighborhood. It was primarily a Israeli secular community, not what it all is today. We lived there for 2 years, had our first child there while in Ramat Eshkol, and then we moved to the old city of Jerusalem in year 3. So now that's 6 years already of Esha Torah. Learning there for first 3 years, doing a smicha program for the second 3 years, and then we made the decision to pay it forward, give back to Esha Torah a little bit, and we said we're going to go work for Esha Torah for 2 years to just say thank you and to teach some Jewish wisdom out there to people. And we took our first job at Esha Torah in Denver, Colorado.
Now you gotta take it through what happens there. Meaning, like you. What's crazy is you decided 6 years before you're gonna stay in Israel and learn. Then you get married. Great story, by the way. Shout out to your wife. Hopefully, who's listening to this one. And then you keep learning and keep going at smicha, and then you get to the point where it's like, I do want to give back, but it takes a lot to say I'm gonna give back, but I'm gonna move my entire life and family across the world to also Denver, Colorado was, I'm sure, even smaller of a Jewish community than it was now. Right now, it's a beautiful community, and I'm sure you'll talk about that also, but it's not easy to now move all the way across the world and go there. So now you got to take me through that process. What was it like moving into that community and kind of what was going on while you were there?
Okay, so we wanted to give back. We also ultimately at some point wanted to be in Israel full time. We couldn't do it at that stage in our life. We didn't really speak Hebrew. Trying to find a job then, right? And it was the Intifada, by the way, right? We're talking 2002, 2001, 2002, and we needed first experience. If we were going to come back to Israel and make a life for ourselves, we needed some real experience. So we decided to ask in Esha Torah where are different places that we can go and give back, and we set up interviews in Cleveland, in New York, and in Denver. We flew out to Denver, and after, I think, 1 or 2 days after the interview, it was a beautiful community, by the way. It was, like you said, the interview, Aish Denver at that time, was in a church, right? Nice full circle for me, right? They bought a church, and Aish Denver was functioning out of a church. There was no eruv there. There was no mikveh there. And they were just getting minyanim, during the weekday, maybe not, just, on Shabbos. And so, we were in my father's house in Cleveland getting ready for our next interview the next day. And we got a call from Rabbi Yaakov Meyer from Aish Denver. And they said, we wanted to, offer you guys this position on the spot. Told us, the amount of money we were going to be making and, the contract and really what was the seal of the deal. We really wanted to work with youth. The job at Aish Denver was working with youth. So why did I always informally wanted to work with youth and to give back. Pretty much one of the things I got from Esha Torah and from Rav Noach Weinberg was just like we have every single person on this planet has a different look and a different face and a different personality. We all have a different reason for being in this world. And we all possess beautiful qualities and character traits that we have to offer this world. Figure out what you have and use it. And if you do that, you're going to be a happy person, right? So I looked at my life's experiences, and this was 6 years in the making in Esha Torah, right? I'm looking at everything my life gave to me, and all of those trials, tribulations, hurdles, all the good times, all the challenging times. And I said, listen, I have a lot to offer, right? I was a kid who, came from a divorced family. We didn't have money. And yet I tell people I got 5-star life, right? People sent me I was in a private Jewish day school. Mm-hmm. I went to private Jewish overnight summer camps, right? I lived a very, very rich childhood. So my life's, and all the teachers, both religious and secular, Jewish and not Jewish, growing up, I call them like angels, right? The time, the effort, the energy that they put into me really gave me and built me into who I was to be successful in life and helped me overcome all those challenges. So my life's mission became, how can I create as many angels as possible to help as many children as possible, right? On my time here. Mm-hmm. So when we were going to Aish Denver, it was like, who can we work with youth or can we not work with youth, right? Aish Torah at the time was really working with young adults, right? Not a lot of family work at that time at all. As a matter of fact, I think just one out of like the 30 branches were working with like families. Wow. When Aish Denver came to us and said to us, right, this is your job and what we want you to do and build a whole family program. On the spot, we accepted it. And on the spot, we called Cleveland and called New York and canceled our interviews there. We did not even accept the interviews. We flew back to Israel, packed up everything, sold everything else that we didn't pack up, and we flew to Denver.
Wow. So now, okay, once you accept the position to go to Denver, and you call your family, and you're like, hey, by the way, you remember when I spoke to you 6 years ago? I was like, I'm staying in Israel. Oh, now we're coming back to America, and we're going to be in Denver, Colorado.
When we tell my family that our families that we're coming back, they're ecstatic. They're ecstatic. We told my mother we're coming to Denver, and my wife is, an angel. She says, Mom, you're coming with us. And, we'll help you move from Pittsburgh to Colorado, and, you'll be with us there. My wife, Shauna's parents were at the time living up in Vail, Colorado, which is 2 hours west of Denver. And they had been there for several years after they retired. So they retired up there. And within a short amount of time, actually, they moved down to Denver with us into the community. And we were all together in Denver. And it was really a special time to have, my mother there and my in-laws there. And all of us were just, part of this community. We ended up staying in Denver. We were supposed to be there for 2 years, as I said, right? We were going to give back for 2 years. I tell people this all the time that, as far as the climate and the state and the people primarily of Denver outside of Israel is like the only place to live. It's a very, very special place. It's got a lot of soul and a lot of beauty. And because of that, we ended up staying 6 years.
Well, I have to actually ask you on that because making a decision of staying for 2 years and then obviously adding on more, was it right after the second year, it was just like, okay, we're going to stay for another 4 years? Or what got you, what was going on there that was so special that got you to keep extending your time?
So we are loving our work. We are successful at our work. It was, our feelings towards the shul, Rabbi Meyer, the community, and the community's, feelings towards us was really mutual. Everybody was on a high. The community itself, you see the fruit of your labor, right now on the spot. And listen, we had 4 of our 5 kids there. And they were, part of the community as well and part of the school there. And we were just rolling. It wasn't like, our 2 years are up and now, it was just, we just, renewed our contract for another year at a time. And it was natural. It was just flowing and it was, continuously, successful year in and year out. And our roots there and our relationships there were just getting stronger and stronger. And at a certain point, our oldest at the time of 4 was 8 years old. We have 3 girls, then 2 boys. So at that time, we had 3 girls and a boy. And the oldest daughter was 8. And we said to ourselves, listen, if we're ever going to go back to Israel, the time is now or not for 15 or 20 years. Because however many kids we were going to have after that, pretty much you're going to wait until they're out of high school to make a move like that. Not really fair for the children to make that kind of a move. Although a lot of people have done it successfully, that wasn't on our radar. So we said right now we got to make a decision, in or out. So we gave notice to Rabbi Meyer and we said, for the betterment of our family, we're gonna make the move to Israel. We told my mother, we told my in-laws, my brother-in-law also, and everyone was on board. And we told everyone that we would like you to come with us. And we made Aliyah with 10 family members all at once. And that was after 6 years in Denver. In 2008, we came to the holy Ramat Beit Shemesh.
It's crazy because I've never heard a story, but like people hear stories of you want to make Aliyah, and then hopefully your family will follow and your friends, whatever. But the fact that you had your family in Colorado, though they moved there to follow you, and then when you're like, you know what, we're going back to Israel, which if you pay attention at the beginning of the story, when you first told them that you want to stay in Israel, they're like, you're crazy, right? But now it kind of comes full circle because you come to Israel and then they follow you and you end up in Ramat Beit Shemesh. So take me through the beginning of your time here and what slowly leads you up to kind of like where we are today.
Okay. So, first of all, I tried to get my father to come also, right? My father's a farmer. Mm-hmm. A lot of stuff to farm in this land. It has not worked out yet, and I haven't given up yet. But one day I want to get him here as well. He should live and be well. He'll be turning 80 this year in a couple months, so there's still time to get him here. But I came here, and up before we moved here and made Aliyah, there was one person. We made a pilot trip, and the whole family was going to Ra'anana. Our family, our Shana and my children and my mother, were coming to Ramat Beit Shemesh because there was a school here where we wanted to put our kids into school. And we made the decision to move here for our entire family and, of course, really for our children and for our future and our children's future. And therefore, it's all about the kids. So we went around to maybe 3 or 4 different cities, and the school that we found that was most fitting for our children was in Ramat Beit Shemesh. That's why we came here. My wife, by the way, is one of 7, and 6 of them are here with her parents. They are all in Ra'anana.
Wow.
So we're the black sheep over here in Ramat Beit Shemesh. It's been wonderful for us. It's been wonderful for the children. And while we were on that pilot trip, I met somebody in an organization called Hakshiva, and they were really right now they were working primarily with parents. They're Olim, people that have made Aliyah. They were struggling for one reason or another. What do we do with our kids, and how do we navigate the system? And so they were really trying to open up a teen program, a youth and teen program, middle school, high school. And I was pushing them to get a job, and they basically said, "Listen, I got no money right now to pay you." We made Aliyah without a job, both of us. Neither of us had work here, and my wife and I both got jobs pretty soon after we moved. My wife builds curriculum, and there was a couple schools that were opening up for girls of Olim. For new immigrants, and she got a job working for them and building curriculum for them, and has still been doing that kind of work until today. I spoke with Hakshiva and said to them, "Listen, you guys are about to open up a teen program. I just came from successfully building a citywide teen program in Denver for 6 years. I will raise my own salary. I'll pay myself, and I'll build this program for you." So for the betterment of 2 or 3 years, that's what I was doing. I was building a teen program here for the Hakshiva organization, and it was fun. It was successful. It was a little bit of different work than I was doing in Denver. Here was a lot of moving into more, if you want to say, kids at risk. It's a generic term because everybody's at risk depending on who you're talking to. Mm-hmm. But I built that program and added on to it an Israeli program as well. And then at that point, the CEO of Hakshiva at that time, Yonatan Martin, who will forever be thankful because he gave us our first job in Israel.
Now, and I pointed this out in the beginning of the episode, and a lot of people that are listening to this, I'm sure, are part of the Geerz family.
Yeah.
And you'll have to elaborate on what that is for those that don't know.
Yeah.
But essentially this time in Hakshiva was the start of working with kids in this community. And then that was a stepping stone into Geerz. And then you ended up going into that. So take me through this period of, you've been in Hakshiva for 2 or 3 years. You helped build it up. You raised your own salary, you did all things. And now it's like, okay, something else is kind of rolling in the background. So take me through that.
Okay, good. So while I'm working with the kids in Hakshiva, I had a mountain bike. And I would be mountain biking 2-3 days a week. The kids knew about it. And the reason that happened was because I was a big snowboarder in Denver and a basketball player. And I know that's, music to your heart. I tore both of my ACLs and had surgery, 8 years, one after another. And needed surgery, and basketball was out of the mix. Snowboarding was still okay. But when we moved to Israel, not a lot of snowboarding around here. And I would snowboard in Denver for, 4 months a year, easily, 4 or 5 months a year. So I needed something else to hook on to sports-wise, mind, body, soul. Everybody's got to exercise. And so one of my very close friends in Denver, right before we made Aliyah, got me into mountain biking. So I came here with a bike. The kids at Hakshiva knew that I rode, and they pretty much, it must have been, a year and a half, 2 years, were bugging me to ride with them. Take me out on a ride, Nachum, come on, The big riding day for everybody in this country is Friday mornings, right? Both for kids and adults, because there's, no school, no work. I said, listen, guys, Thursday nights, you guys party, you hang out. You're not getting up at 7 a.m. to come ride with me. I pushed them off like that for the betterment of 2 years. Finally, they cornered me one Thursday and said, listen, we really want to go. We're serious. And these are the same kids that I've been working with for a couple of years. And I said to them, listen, if you guys go to bed early and you guys hydrate, all evening, no beer, no drugs, you're meeting me at this corner at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, I'll take you on a ride. And I was able to arrange 8 bikes and helmets from my friends here. And we got a holy bagel from Adam Rosenberg and, big breakfast afterwards. I took these guys on a ride and full circle. We had a blast. But 2 things happened during that ride. I'd been working with these kids already for several years, and they don't talk much. I kind of felt like this entire time, this whole thing with the angels and trying to affect as many kids as I possibly could. I was on to something, but it was always never enough for me. I always wanted more. And in life in general, that's how I want to do more. I want to do better. I just want more. I'm a seeker. And I kind of felt like I knew that was, when those kids were hanging out with me in the teen center, it was like Sur Meira. We were preventing them from going out there and doing bad stuff. But and that was, by the way, only when they were with me. I didn't know what they were doing right before. I did know, and I don't have any control of what they're doing afterwards. But this, what I call asay tov, like how can I flip around their lives? How can I transform their lives into something that's meaningful and that's forever? It wasn't happening there. And these youth centers and teen centers are critical, and they're so important. But for me, I wanted more. So during this ride, I said to one kid, Tzachi, it was at the beginning of the ride. And you can imagine, we're out there, there's no cell phones. You're with a group of kids. I had a couple of adults with me as well. You're in beautiful nature. It's quiet. You're completely separate from anything going on in Ramat Beit Shemesh, all the noise. And I said, Tzachi, how are things going at home? How are things at school? How are things with friends, with family? Tzachi didn't stop talking to me for 15 or 20 minutes straight. And already I'm saying to myself, like after every minute, I'm like, what's going on? Wow. He hasn't a minute straight talking to me in 2 years didn't happen. It was, can I have this? Can I go now? Yes, no. How are things at home? Great. Right? That's all you get from a teen. Okay. You don't want to talk. All of a sudden he's talking to me for 15, 20 minutes, telling me everything going on in his life. So, number 2 happened at the end of the ride. The end of the ride was a huge hill. And we're waiting for Yehuda. He was the stud of the group. He was the cool kid. He was going to go to the army in a couple years. He smoked cigarettes. He worked out. He played ball. He was, good looking guy. And we're all at the top of the hill waiting. And Yehuda's not there. And already it's like a minute, 2 minutes. We're all tired. Everybody's kind of getting undressed to take your helmets off, take your gloves off. Everybody's drinking water. Yehuda's still not here. 7-8 minutes later, Yehuda comes walking his bike up the hill. He's panting. His helmet is on his handlebar, right? And he's, going back and forth with his head. And as he's getting closer, he's cursing at himself. He's cursing at me. Why'd you take me here? I couldn't do the hill. He's very upset, noticeably. And he takes out his pack of cigarettes. And I said, Yehuda, hold on a second. 5 minutes, we're at my house. We're going to have a big breakfast. We got coffee. I said, you'll have a coffee and a cigarette. Just hold off for 5 minutes. He says, you don't understand, Nachum. And he takes the pack of cigarettes in front of everybody. He rips up the pack of cigarettes. He says, I'm done. I'm done smoking. If I can't make it up that hill, I'm done smoking until I can make it up that hill. So we get home. I have a great time with the kids at the house. They leave. And I told Shauna, I said, we're onto something here. I've never in my life, in these couple years here, in our 6 years in Denver, have seen anything as transformative as what just happened in the hills on mountain bikes. From that point on, we started doing a deep dive into what was it. I couldn't ask Gemini, right, on the spot because it didn't exist yet, obviously. And there was no ChatGPT to ask and get some quick answers. We took some time and we had to research a little bit. What just happened? And there's something called adventure therapy. And there's group therapy. And there's being outdoors and the effects that it has on the human. And we really started doing a lot of research. As a matter of fact, it had me go back to school. I became a marriage and family therapist because I wanted to just do a little bit more of a deep dive into, our makeup and, mental and emotional, makeup and what I could do with this newfound treasure, at our fingertips. And from that point on, I don't know. You can ask another question.
There's so much obviously to unpack because this is the beginning of the story of Geerz.
Yes.
And these two stories that I guess just happened in passing, basically. You took the kids out for a bike ride. You had no intention of starting this and making it what it is today. And all of a sudden these two stories of these two boys opening up and then, kind of getting rid of his cigarettes. So what happens from here though? Meaning you do a deep dive, you get your license. Yeah. You get your license. And then is it, okay, let's start our own organization where you were probably still working at Hakshiva at the time still, right? So kind of take me through there.
Right. So what happened is every time I personally came back from a ride with my friends or by myself, I started looking at riding differently now, right? I understand that there's adventure therapy. I understand from my psychological point of view and an emotional health point of view, what riding is doing for me personally, is doing for all my friends, and what it can do, obviously, how much more so for kids, right? If this is happening to me as an adult and to all my friends who are educated and successful, then how much more so maybe can this help these kids? So from that point on, I started taking these kids out every single week. They wanted more. I gave them more. It grew into 15 kids in a group. At the end of the year, the parents called me and said, we need something for our kids to do through the summer. We'll pay you to take the kids out. And actually, I had 30 kids coming out with us. I would take 15 kids out for an hour and a half on a Friday after school, come back right away, turn around, say goodbye to those kids, Shabbat Shalom, had a little huddle, right? And then went back out with the next 15 kids. Every single week, I was teaching them some kind of a life lesson. Because when I was going out with my friends or myself, I was learning life lessons. I was learning, how to overcome challenging situations, right? I was learning how to overcome fear when I, was looking at this huge, steep downhill that I had to go down that I'd never gone down before. And I was terrified and I got through it. And I had to, I was walking myself through the mental exercise of what just happened. What did I do to get me down that hill? Perseverance when I, couldn't climb up a very challenging hill and I had to stop and walk, or I had to try again because I fell. And again, what was going on with me emotionally, mentally, psychologically to persevere? Anger management, right? The first time I was by myself and it's sundown and I'm an hour away from the house and I break a chain and I don't know how I'm going to get home. And I'm frustrated now. And I'm trying, I never fixed a chain in my life. What am I supposed to do? And I had to figure out how to fix a chain. And 3-4 times of me trying, and now it's getting dark and I'm scared, right? And I'm upset and I'm angry. And you know how that goes when guys are trying to fix things and it just doesn't work time and time again, right? And I can't punch my mountain bike, right? Because I'll break it, or my hand. So, you have to figure it out. I would come home every single ride and I would tell Shauna, who's a curriculum developer, I would say, Shauna, we got to put this into a class. What I just learned today is gold, and we got to put it down into a class. And slowly, simultaneously, I'm spending a lot of time riding with these kids. I'm spending a lot of time myself riding and building this curriculum with my wife. And Hakshiva comes to me and says, Nachum, we need you here full time. And rightfully so, right? Because I was spending a lot of time with riding and on my bike and with these youth. And I had to make a decision. And I said, listen, I have to resign from Hakshiva and I got to spend, my life and my time like this. It was very clear to me that this was the ticket for the rest of my life of why God put me on this planet, was to help as many kids that I can possibly to overcome life's challenges and be successful in life through the mountain bike. So it was a very nice and warm and loving, depart from Hakshiva. And very soon after, I opened up Geerz, which is a therapeutic mountain biking organization. And we had to work on obviously becoming Sif Arba'im V'Sheish, they call it, right? So we and a 501c3 in America. So we had to become tax deductible and to be official organization, both in Israel and in America. And from that point on, I started hiring people, started training instructors. Those groups in Beit Shemesh kept growing from 2 groups to 4 groups to 6 groups to 8 groups. That was really how Geerz got started.
So we need to unpack more from there, but it's so awesome to just hear a person that has something in front of them that Hashem gave you, which was this experience with the boys, and then it kind of all like led into itself. But the fact you're able to look at me right now and say, this is what I believe my calling is in this world is, I admire that and I respect it, and just it's awesome. So now that you keep growing in Beit Shemesh, and it's growing, and obviously for those that don't know, today Geerz is way outside of Beit Shemesh. So take me through a little bit what Geerz became and kind of what it looks like today and what's going on.
Okay, so Geerz was what we call a community program, right? So it really spread. We never really we don't really have a marketing and advertisement budget. It was all word of mouth, and it just kind of spiraled and it grew here in Ramat Beit Shemesh. A community program like any other after school program. People call, every time somebody calls me and says, I want to sign my kids up for the Geerz Chug, right, which is like an after school program. I say, first of all, thank you for calling. Second of all, Geerz is not a Chug, right? Geerz is a therapeutic mountain biking program, and everybody needs it, right? Because we all need some kind of therapeutic something in our life. But we really, the idea of a community program is like any other after school program. Again, I wanted more. So people started hearing about us in other cities and other towns. We opened up in Modi'in. We opened up in Efrat. We opened up in Ra'anana. Again, these are all community programs. And eventually, we started. Let me take a step back. My wife and I ended up creating when we opened up Geerz. We opened up Geerz with 150 class curriculum. So just to understand, it's a curriculum-based organization, which is why we don't call it a chug, right? It's a program. And we have 150 classes of how to get through life's challenges and how to succeed in life through the mountain bike, whether it's how to ride, how to climb, how to descend, how to switch gears, body position, safety and etiquette, right? How are you safe when you're out there in the hills? How much water do you need to bring? What's your attire have to be? Can you wear sandals? Can you not wear sandals? You have to wear a helmet, right? So we have a full curriculum, 150 classes on how to succeed in life through the mountain bike. So that's about 5 years worth of curriculum because Geerz runs 30 sessions throughout the school year. So it's a really put together program. And not only that, but because it's a program that's running through the school year, we also can run within a school system. So it doesn't have to be outside of school and after hours. It could be in the morning in a school. So once these other communities started hearing about us, we started moving and branching out. At a certain point, I said to myself, wait a second. Where are we essentially operating? In Ramat Beit Shemesh and Ra'anana, in the Gush, and in Modi'in. These are all like Anglo populations. Again, I firmly believe that everybody needs to be on a bike and in Geerz. I think it'll help everybody. I know it will help everybody to some degree in their life where they need it. And if I have $1 in 1 minute, where do I want to spend my time and my money? Especially donors' money. And we slowly cut out the Gush and Modi'in and Ra'anana, and we slowly moved into the Gaza periphery and the northern borders of Israel, and to try to help all of those kids who needed us the most and could afford us the least. As you can imagine, forever, the Gaza border, the trauma that those kids are infused with, and they can't escape from, is terrifying. And if I have $1 and I got 1 minute, every kid is important, but where am I going to spend that money? And where am I going to spend that time? So we really started growing into those areas down south and up north. We started opening programs inside, and which is really our bread and butter right now. The really only community program that's left is Ramat Beit Shemesh. We are considered like fringe over here because of the Olim. The kids here need us a lot. They really need us on so many different levels for different reasons than the kids in the south and the north need us. But right now, we're also functioning in schools for special ed. And we're also in something called a Kfar Noar, which is a youth village. A lot of people don't know about youth villages, but a youth village, there's literally hundreds of them around the country, which is really beautiful. But already starting from first grade through 12th grade, kids that it's unsafe to be at home for whatever reason are either living full-time or at least part-time in these youth villages. And Geerz goes into these youth villages. We open up a moadon, right, for Geerz with helmets and bikes and instructors. And we're there anywhere between 1 and 4 groups a week in each one of these youth villages. And like I said, also for schools all around the country for kids in special ed. So where we started here in Ramat Beit Shemesh in 2012 with one group of kids that were, pushing me and hawking me to take them out, 8 boys. We now have a full-blown program of 550 Israeli youth on a weekly basis, both boys and girls. We also, there's a lot more competitive kids as well. You can imagine in these youth villages, it's not like a regular high school, right? There's no real program for sports. And you have a lot of kids that need that and that are competitive and that want it. So what we did was with the Israel Cycling Association, it's called the Igud HaOfanaim. We opened up a race club for all of these. It's a mountain biking race club for all these kids in the youth village. And there's a few hundred kids that race throughout the year. It's a racing league. Geerz provides about half of those kids that are racing in that league. We podium all the time. And it's, as you can imagine, for those types of kids to be able to win a medal, to be able to step up on a podium, they would never in a million years be able to do that because of their unfortunate life situation. Something really incredible happened last year. One of the communities that we work with in the South, it's called Shavei Darom. another Pittsburgh connection that we had. They wanted us to come down and start working with the kids there. As you can imagine, like I said, especially through the war, almost all of their fathers were fighting a few kilometers away in Gaza, and they knew that their fathers were there. And every time they heard some kind of artillery go off, and the ground shakes literally underneath them, you can imagine the trauma. And the mothers, a few of the mothers called me up and said, we heard about Geerz. We need Geerz in our community. And that's how typically these, we move in to Kibbutz Nirim and Kibbutz Sa'ad and all these areas. It's word of mouth. We need this for our children. So a little over a year ago, I went to go speak to the mothers and to talk to them just a little bit more about why Geerz and how Geerz is transforming their children's lives, because they're talking to me about it and they want to understand what's going on and why, this is the only thing that's been helping my kid. Can you please come and talk to us and explain to us why? And it was a whole nice evening for the kids. And I was talking to the mothers and I said goodnight to everybody. It was a nice hour-long talk. As I'm walking out, 5 of the mothers surround me. And they said, listen, you've transformed and you've saved and have helped the Geerz program, our children. In that town, we have 2 groups for boys and 1 group for girls every single week now for a couple of years, since the war. They said our husbands have been fighting for over 500 days in Gaza. And this was over a year ago. They said, next week is Purim. They're getting out. The week after Purim, we need you to start Geerz for our husbands. Our husbands need Geerz. They're suffering. The amount of trauma that they are going through. We see it. We feel it as wives. Our children feel it. Work feels it. Their companies, their jobs. And our husbands need this. What do we have to do to open Geerz for soldiers? They didn't say a word. It was like the best fundraising pitch you've ever heard. They just stopped and just looked at me, teary-eyed, like, what are we going to do? And I don't know. I just took a deep breath and I said, I want 12 of your husbands in 2 Fridays, 9 a.m. I'll have bikes, helmets, and an instructor here, and let's give it a whirl. And so thank God from that point on, we did 4 sessions with them to see if it was going to work. And it was one of the most successful pilot programs we've ever obviously have run. And so today we are in the middle of about 100 soldiers already that we've put into our program. We started a new program called the Geerz Veterans Program. It's the slang would be the Miluimnikim program. And the goal right now is over the next 3 years. We have a waiting list right now of 300 soldiers that want to come into the program. Over the next 3 years, the goal is to mimic in numbers the youth program. So we have 550 kids. So hopefully in 3 years' time is to have 550 soldiers in the program. What we did in order to support the program psychologically and emotionally and mentally, we hired a medical psychologist, and my wife and Dr. Hammerman have had to revise our curriculum that we use for the youth specifically for the soldiers. And the program has been, very, very successful. Just the basis, what any soldier is going to get, what 100% of them have already said, you can imagine what they're carrying on their soldiers. You can imagine what they're carrying on their shoulders. It's very difficult to speak about what they go through on a daily basis when they're in Lebanon or they're in Gaza. But when you're carrying that kind of trauma, you don't speak about it. Most people don't speak about it. And the number one thing that you need to do is to talk about it. And no matter how much the army and the government gives to the soldiers opportunities for therapy, they give them money, they give them therapists, they don't want to go. Typically, they don't want to go. It's hard. It's hard to go sit in a room with somebody you don't know and look at them eye to eye and start telling them and talking to them everything you're going through. It's very, very difficult. We've provided a platform where they're not going to therapy. right? It's therapy in disguise, or it's a therapeutic act in disguise. You're going out and you're riding a mountain bike with 15 other soldiers. It happens to be that we carefully plan that the soldiers sit together in a circle during the ride, and they just start talking about their experiences. And for the first time in 500-600 days of being in Gaza, they can talk and share their experiences. And I've interviewed personally the wives who have said to me that there were dark clouds over my husband. My kids would say, Mommy, you know, the Ha'anan HaShachor Azav, right? The black cloud left Abba. What happened? And the mom says, Geerz, right? I don't know what to tell you, except he's been riding with other soldiers in the hills, and it's working wonders. The why and the how, it could be a whole different session, and why it works and how it works and what are we doing exactly. But just so you understand that both the youth program and the soldier program, part of this curriculum is midway through the 90-minute to 2-hour ride session, the instructor has the curriculum, and the instructor stops and they all sit down together in a circle and they go over that week's curriculum and they talk. They talk about, this week we're learning about perseverance. This week we're learning about fear, right? And then they all talk together about how they in their lives have to overcome fear and how the mountain bike has helped them persevere or overcome fear in their lives.
Wow. It's wild to hear this story. And obviously I've known the story before you came, and I just have to say to you, as I sit here with you, kol hakavod and yasher koach, and to, as obviously as we're ending this episode, but just to bring this whole picture full circle, it's to hear your story of how you grew up and coming to Israel and then going back to America, working with kids and slowly getting your foot into here and Hashem opening up a door over there, and it all coming to starting off helping kids in the community. But in you know, as you kind of alluded to, there's a lot more that needs to be done within outside of the Jewish the Anglo communities in Israel.
Yeah.
And there's just so much, and this is your calling, and it's really inspiring to see, and just kol hakavod and yashkwa for the Jewish people, on behalf of the Jewish people. And as we finish off, I'm going to end off with one question to you, and that is, whoever's listening to this, at whatever stage they're at in life, if you had one message that was like, keep this message in your pocket and take this with you for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Whew. Wow. If I had one message, it would be to figure out, for ultimate happiness, figure out what your God-given talent is, and whatever you do on a daily basis, make sure it has some of that in it.
Drop the mic. That was that was really great, and it connects back to who you are and your story and everything. And this was an absolute pleasure of a conversation. And I hope people take a lot of inspiration from you and your story. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you for finding me, reaching out to me, and it's wonderful. Thank you, and continue doing your great work and spreading the love and the mission of the Jewish people.
I appreciate it. Amen. Thank you so much for joining me in this week's episode. If I had to take one lesson away from Nachum, which was actually what he ended off the episode with, take your talent that Hashem gave you and use it. Because if you do that, you're going to wake up every single day, B'ezrat Hashem, jumping out of bed, hoping to do something special for the Jewish people and also the world. You better be here for next week because you don't want to miss who I have. We'll see you guys soon. Enjoy.